Welcome to the Essentially You podcast. Christa, honey, how are you doing today?
I'm so good, Marisa. It's great to see you again.
Oh my gosh, it's so good to see you. I have been following you all over Instagram, girl. Loving your message. I feel like we are cut from the same cloth in terms of our messaging and what we want to do in the world when it comes to women. And I'm just really excited to bring on your brilliance today.
Oh, thanks. It's great to be here. And I love doing interviews with like-minded people because you totally get it.
Absolutely. We're going to have so much fun. We're talking about disorder that you've discovered or that you've really coined in a really great way, which is called the TAG disorder. And that's specifically looking at the thyroid, the adrenals, and the gut. And I know my audience is like, oh yeah, we know those. But you have really figured out like what is going on with the interplay when it comes to these particular endocrine glands and our gut becoming deregulated. So I want to have you, before we get into like the whole kit and caboodle of this, I want to have you just share your little story about what inspired you to do this work. What inspired you to want to support women in this way?
After nearly a decade in private practice and people coming to me with just myriad of health issues, and then I started moving into the online space with the gut, and I realized, okay, basically, all of functional medicine can be handled with a triangle of addressing the thyroid, the adrenals, and the gut. And if you can figure out where someone's imbalance started and how it tagged to the other two and help them get better, then that can fix 90% of health issues, mental, emotional stressors notwithstanding, right? Like you have to bring those in. And so that really led me. I used to say all disease begins in the gut. I've done microbiome programs and candida programs, but I really believe like all disease starts in the nervous system. That's the foundation of human health. And we're all running at a fast pace, and there's mental, emotional stressors and things that we can't get to. And then all of a sudden it starts tagging these other organs and glands. And that's how we get this unraveling of health, so to speak. And so I'm so excited to see people addressing everything concurrently in a gentle way that works with their body, and then getting inspired for their own healing capacity, right? Instead of giving their power away to a doctor or a nutritionist or whoever, they start to understand their body's own inherent healing capacity.
I love that. I love that so much. And I want to dive into talking about that nervous system and talking about the stress response, because I think you and I feel very strongly that a lot of us are in a state of perceived stress and we don't even know it. And maybe even some of us, this is full confession from me, is that I leveraged my like stress mode to actually boost my energy levels. And I had no idea that I was doing this. I was like, oh, what's this little something that I've got going on here? And I would just literally leverage it until I burned myself into the ground. No wonder I have, Hashimoto's thyroiditis. No wonder I had gut dysbiosis. So talk to me a little bit about, let's take kind of, and I think of chronic perceived stress as one of those intangibles, in the sense that, again, so often we don't necessarily know what's happening, but how does that cascade send us down the road to other deregulations?
Yeah, so it's exactly like you said, and many of us don't realize we're living it. We like that little extra something, right? And that could just be we're driven, like we're talking before we went live. You have all these projects going on. And I remember in that stage, and you feel alive, right? And it kind of feels good, but you don't realize that you're living off of stress hormones and that your body is now overproducing cortisol, right? And up to 60 different kinds of adrenaline. And what that's doing, and you talk about Hashimoto's, right, is it's tagging the thyroid, because the oversecretion of cortisol is going to have an inverse relationship with thyroid hormone and going to suppress the thyroid and say, hey, okay, slow things down. We're in a state of fight or flight. And it could be good stress, or it could be other kinds of stress. People going through all manner of life situations, whether that's loss or divorce or financial troubles or, having kids. And I'm sure you've worked with a ton of women that it takes a full 2 years to recover your adrenal glands after you have a baby. And what happens? Most women will have another baby before their adrenals are recovered, before their thyroid's recovered.
Your thyroid, yeah.
Yeah.
You don't realize how much the thyroid plays a role in, postpartum, or if the thyroid is thrown off during pregnancy. Even that takes a minute to come online.
Yeah. And I'm sure a lot of your clients, they don't really balance their hormones proactively after having a baby. And you get this huge progesterone drop, right? And then you get a cortisol spike. And so the stress hormone is going to burn through more progesterone. And what's it going to do? Spike estrogen. You start getting all these like uncomfortable symptoms and insomnia, and you're stuck in this chronic state of stress. And I've had women come to me like, I had a baby 8 years ago. I've never felt the same since. Right? And so it's any manner of stress, and really 80% of us, 80% of women, 20% of men are suffering with this, so to speak. And so if we can, which we're going to talk about today, a 6-pillar strategy to click them out of what we're calling sympathetic dominance, fight or flight, and put them into parasympathetic dominance, where that's your rest, digest, and heal nervous system. That's where you can calm everything down, re-regulate the adrenals, allow the thyroid to start contributing to cellular energy once again, and so many gut problems are improved when you go from there. Because if you're stressed, you're burning through hydrochloric acid like nobody's business, and you're causing more and more leaky gut and the death of good gut bacteria. So really these three, they really can't be separated. And to your point, the more gut problems we have, the more liver problems we have, and the liver is so crucial for hormone production. So it's a way to address the mind, body, and spirit really all at the same time.
I love this. I love this. And yeah, we know the liver, metabolism, conversion, breakdown. I mean, even creation, such a big player here in this conversation as well. I know that women are listening and they're thinking, oh my gosh, this is making so much sense, and where do I even begin to start? Some people tell us we got to start in the gut. Some people tell us we've got to figure out a way to reset, redo the nervous system. And before we even get into that, can we talk about a little bit of we know stress has an impact on our gut. We know it has an impact on our insulin levels. We know it has an impact on our thyroid. But talk to me about the collateral damage that stress has on the brain and the nervous system.
They're all interconnected, right? So for me, hormonal balance begins in the brain. And I'm sure all your listeners have heard of the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis, the HPA axis, and your neurotransmitters. Those are the chemical messengers in the brain. And when we get stressed, we have excitatory neurotransmitters that are responsible for our get up and go. We have inhibitory neurotransmitters that help us feel calm, relaxed, and safe. And now we do this inverse relationship, right? We don't have enough GABA, which makes us feel calm. So we start to get anxiety. We're using more epinephrine to generate the cortisol, and we're starting to get imbalanced. And the problem is, it's okay to visit this, but when you live in it for a long time and you're living in fight or flight, where you're kind of looking for the other shoe to drop, you change the chemical pathways in the brain, and then we have to change them back. And amino acid therapy, using food as medicine, is one of the single best ways to do that. And then we also have to take care of what's called the myelin sheath. And that's the electrical insulator of our nerve cells. So when we go through something traumatic, even if it's good trauma, like building a bunch of businesses all at once and writing books and doing all these things, it's still, our switch is glued on. And so we still have to fix the collateral damage to the nervous system, almost like putting some soothing honey all over that and restoring the electrical tape so the chemical messengers can flow with ease and grace. And then, from the hypothalamus and the pituitary in the brain, we can then give direction to the thyroid hormones, of what hormones to produce. And also, once we start to regulate those, then the sex hormones can start to regulate on their own. And that's the idea there.
I love that. I love that. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about how do we fix this? I think that's a big part of this conversation today, is giving women the tools to really dig in and figure out how to heal their bodies. Because I know we talked about some of the biggest organ systems, but the symptomology here, from mood swings to PMS to hot flashes to stubborn weight, I mean, name it, across the board, so many of the symptoms that women are dealing with are all attributed to what we're talking about right now. So if you're listening right now and you're thinking, gosh, I don't feel really great, or man, yeah, my brain isn't firing on all cylinders, or yes, I do feel overwhelmed and anxious, or I have been putting on weight and I can't seem to get rid of it, nothing is helping. This is absolutely the conversation we got to be having. So how do we get into this?
Yes. Okay. So we have 6 pillars that we will work with people to help them overcome. And the first is really using your food as medicine. So synergistic foods for the brain, thyroid, the nervous system, and also the gut and the adrenals. And so we need to replenish what's been lost, so to speak. So let's say for the thyroid, we're doing higher amounts of riboflavin and selenium in the food, or for the adrenals, we're doing more vitamin C and pantothenic acid, B5, higher foods in B5 that are going to help with cellular energy. And the problem with, you're talking about women who, hey, I've been on a diet, I've been exercising more, nothing's happening, and I'm still gaining weight. Well, the problem is you might be eating your food, but are you converting it into fuel? And so we have to structure that to make sure that the food you're eating is actually being converted into fuel and being used inside the cells to stoke cellular energy. So we're going to combine synergistic foods and herbs and spices that includes for the gut, things like cumin and coriander and fennel. That's going to help with all aspects of digestion. It's going to be really important. And then I know you'll agree with me. I feel like every health practitioner in the world would agree that if there's just one thing that you do to improve your health, it's regulate blood sugar.
Oh, yes.
Right. And so what's happening here is when we're in this state, we have completely lost the ability to regulate our blood sugar. So instead of actually living off of food, we're living off of stress hormones. So what we have to do is we have to interrupt this chaotic whirlpool, right, of the cortisol bath, so to speak. So food frequency is going to be really important to start to shift this. So anytime the body's starting to overproduce cortisol, you have to get ahead of it and have food frequency, proteins, carbs, and fats, like never eat one macronutrient alone, and have that food frequency. Kind of treat yourself like a baby, right? When you're putting a baby on a schedule and they're eating frequently, it calms their nervous system. And so making sure you eat within 30 minutes or an hour of waking, and then at least every 4 hours from there, so that you can do for your body what it effectively can't do for itself right now, which is regulate blood sugar. Teach it how to do that. You won't have to eat frequently forever, but for now, this is the path, back to greater health. And something like when you're in the state, something like intermittent fasting or the ketogenic diet is going to exacerbate things. I mean, I have so many women coming into the Adrenal Recode that think, I felt great on the keto diet or intermittent fasting for 3 months or 6 months. I lost weight. Now I have this spare tire. My hair's falling out. I can't think straight and I'm super anxious, right? And so we don't necessarily want to use that as a band-aid. It can be helpful for insulin regulation and lowering inflammation, but this is a better way to train your organs and glands to work for you instead of against you. So food frequency is going to be really important. I love your take on this. So pillar number 3 is using fruit and root sugar to build resilience. So really what's happened is we kind of lost our generator. And so we don't have any stored energy as glycogen in our muscles or in our liver. And so if we did, then it's not a big deal if we go without food because our body can release that and our blood sugar can stay balanced. But many of us are running so fast that what happens is we think, oh, I'm too busy, or you're thinking about the kids and you've got snacks for them, but you forgot yourself, right? And so then all of a sudden, now you don't have food and you don't have stored glycogen to be able to release to regulate blood sugar, and you go into that whole, cascade again. And so we're using fruit and root sugar. So basically every time you eat, you're going to have some form of whole food carbohydrates to be able to start refilling those glycogen stores. And then that will start to create that safety and so that you don't overclick into the nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system again.
Now, are there specific fruits and roots that you recommend? Like, what are ones in which we can easily implement into our salads or into our lunch?
Yeah, and it can be controversial, but we actually really like the tropical fruits. Early in my career, I'd be like, oh, they're too high in sugar. But now that I understand what's happening with all of these women, the tropical fruits can be really helpful. The mango and banana and pineapple in your smoothie, you blunt the sugar spike with some good quality fat like coconut oil and collagen or good quality protein powder. But so getting these fruits in, berries are fine. You just have to eat a little bit more of them if you're trying to get the proper balance of carbohydrates. And then, of course, we love all manner of root vegetables, sweet potatoes, white potatoes, yams, And butternut squash is great. And I think, we're all fans of cassava. Like, I really don't know what I would do without cassava. If you want to have the wraps and, all of these things that are made from cassava or the yucca root now, they're all going to be really helpful to help to refill those glycogen stores. And everybody's different. And so if you're coming off the ketogenic diet, we may say, hey, you can't just throw all these carbohydrates in, you're going to gain weight fast, right? So we use, which I'll eventually get into, is the fifth pillar, where we're using customized macronutrient ratios. So we want to train your body to use food as fuel once again. So you may start with 2 tablespoons and train your body, because otherwise you'll get gas and bloating and all kinds of things if you're not used to having these carbohydrates. And you slowly train your body. It's like stoking that metabolic fire once again. And so it really depends on where you're coming from and what you're doing now. And you can just slowly start to make these changes of, every time you eat, you just have to make sure you have one of those fruit or root sugar that's also combined with a protein and a fat.
All right, perfect. And then talk to me about the use of saturated fats to protect the nervous system. So we're looking out for the myelin sheaths, right? That really propagate information very quickly. My thought is that this has a connection to that to some degree.
It is connected to that to some degree, but it's also really connected to just cellular integrity in general. And what's happening is, when we've been through anything stressful, then we need to cultivate new nerve cells. And vitamin A is one of the best ways to do that. And it's when you're in a compromised state, having beta carotene from orange vegetables be converted to vitamin A is tougher for the body than just giving it straight up vitamin A from animal sources. And so we love to use saturated fat. I'm talking about ghee or grass-fed butter if you can handle dairy, and coconut oil. We're using monounsaturated fat as well from avocados, avocado oil, and olive oil, and really limiting polyunsaturated fats. And so mostly nuts and seeds, and especially, we think in the paleo community, and yes, they are inherently very healthy foods, but when your nervous system is out of balance and you've got tag disorder, so to speak, it's really difficult for the body to digest those. So we want to just use metabolic foods, which means foods that are super easy to digest because our guts aren't functioning really well. We just want to give you food your body can use as medicine without having to work so hard. And then also saturated fats are the most stable, right? We can leave them out. Coconut oil doesn't have to be refrigerated, and we're going for stability. So if you think of it like, well, I mean, you're a doctor, so right? If you just think of fats as a strain of carbon molecules and you have hydrogen attached to all of them, you create this safety and security with saturated fat. And then when you move to the monounsaturated fat, you're missing a few hydrogen molecules. And then when you go to the polys, you're missing a lot. It's like wheels on a bus, and if you're missing half the wheels, it's going to be a rocky ride. So we want to keep everything smooth to create this safety in the body. So kind of the balance that we aim for, that anyone can aim for, would be 50% saturated, 45% monounsaturated, and only 5% polyunsaturated. Really want to pick and choose those nuts and seeds when you're in a healing zone. Doesn't mean you can't change that over time, but that's kind of the perfect balance that we've found that works, for a large amount of people throughout their healing process.
Is it also a concern around the nuts and seeds that if we've got a gut issue or a leaky gut, any type of gut dysbiosis, that breaking down, or even those could be causing inflammation inside of the gut?
Absolutely. They're pro-inflammatory. So these polyunsaturated and a lot of omega-6s and 9s, when you're in a weakened state, the host is weakened, of course, you can't break it down. And so that goes back to the metabolic foods. They're not necessarily a metabolic food. They're not really easy to digest. And if you have leaky gut, you got to be really careful, because everything that's escaping that gut lining is going directly to the brain. Now your liver's having to remetabolize toxins. And so you're just giving, more insult to injury. I think anybody who can resonate, who's in a stressed state, they just have a handful of nuts for a snack, but they just feel like they're sitting there like a rock in their stomach, right? And might get kind of bloated afterwards. And so if you are going to eat nuts and seeds, I would minimize them and soak the nuts for 1 to 8 hours and then pat them dry before you have them, just to increase the bioavailability.
I know this can be, because everybody is different. You've got people who already have significant insulin deregulation, you've got a lot of gut issues. And so I know that customizing macronutrient ratios and looking at that real-time assessment, how do we create real-time assessment on this?
Yeah, well, I'm sure just like me that you've run thousands of labs on your clients, and we like to look, okay, what's happening with the thyroid? We do the cortisol panel for the adrenals, but what we're finding is it's so much easier and quicker and gives you more information to use temperature and pulse. And so running the lab work will give you a snapshot in time of what's happening, but if you're looking at your own temperature and pulse, then you're able to see, okay, did this meal work for or against me? And you can change your macros and the types of food you're eating and what you're doing throughout the day, right? So maybe you're expending too much energy. You can change that from meal to meal to force yourself in the healing window. And so what temperature can tell us, like eating should be thermogenic, the right kind of healthy foods, I mean, should raise your temperature. Now, I'm not talking about sugar. Sugar is thermogenic. We don't want people eating refined foods and getting false positives, anything like that. But we want them to be able to take their temperature, and then we can find out, okay, what are inflammation levels? How much T3 is actually in the cell, the active thyroid hormone? We can tell, okay, is glucose and oxygen, are they also getting in the cell? We can tell cortisol rhythms because we're trying to create this bell curve to restore the regulation to the adrenals. So we can tell all of that information, and then things change your temperature, like maybe the temperature of the food or ovulation, climate, things can change it. So we'll use pulse as a backup, and we're trying to get people, for 97.4 to 98.6 or 37.5 to 38 for your international viewers. And, we're actually looking for a higher pulse, which kind of shocks some athletes. So we really wanted to see it around 70 to 80 beats per minute to make sure you're getting the oxygenation that you need. And athletes will tend to be lower, and that might just be telling us, hey, you need more carbohydrates to offset the stress that's happening in your system. And so it's really been a profound tool for people to use food as like the most customized form of medicine. Every time they eat, they can adjust it. And it's not just, for me, that is objective, right? Science is objective, but we need the subjective because we don't treat the lab work, we're treating the person. So then we're looking subjectively and we're asking people, and I love this about what you do and everything that you post. I'm like, yes, she gets it, right? Is getting them to check in with themselves intuitively. How do you feel? What's your day like? How did you sleep? Are you expending too much energy? Have you been chasing the kids around the house? Have you been working really hard, on your business all day? And so really getting people to understand this intuitive flow of how they live and breathe and exist, and where does that match up with the expense of energy? And that allows someone to become their own best doctor. And people are resistant to it in the beginning, because they want someone else to give them a protocol, tell them exactly what to do, and go as the crow flies. But when you really do the work to look into yourself and understand yourself, then you have this strength and this ability to be resilient going forward, which is priceless.
I can imagine there is definitely some resistance to getting started with that.
Yeah, it's too nebulous, right? Because we're so used to kind of giving our power away and going outside and give me this protocol and give me this effect. But it's like, well, you are going to be in this human body for the rest of your life. And if you can really get to know yourself on a mind, body, emotional level, then you will have the tools to keep yourself in balance. And so it's just getting over that hurdle, and then it flows. Just like the whirlpool I talked about of the stress cycle in the wrong direction. Once we constantly interrupt it with all these pillars, then we're flipping it in the other direction. So it's hard at first to shift a whirlpool, right? But then when you have it, then everything is working for you, and the healing becomes exponential once you're clicked in. And we'll use breath as our sixth and final pillar and movement, right? Customized movement. The breath is the remote control of both the brain and the nervous system. It's the fastest way to get out of that stress state. It's the fastest way to oxygenate your cells, which is 33% of the equation when you're going for cellular energy and you're going for greater healing.
Yeah, because I feel like we kind of start at the very beginning where we do have a stress response system that is responding to whatever the environment is throwing at us. I always like to call it like it's relatively, to me, it's an intangible in the sense that we don't always know what's happening. Mm-hmm. And so I always love, recommending, and clearly there's lots of wonderful apps like Heart Math out there to kind of look at heart rate variability. But I always recommend that if people don't have access to those things, to just have their phone and have like a little chime on their phone every 60 minutes or every even 90 minutes, that it chimes in this really beautiful, lovely, yoga type sound, or, transformational type sound, where they take that moment and do some deep breath work and move their body just to kind of interrupt whatever the daily pattern might be.
Yes. Yes. Sticky notes, whatever works
Yeah.
for you to constantly interrupt. But a lot of people put, signs that just say breathe, sticky notes on their computer, on their bathroom mirror. You're right. We've got to interrupt that and remember, because all of our power in life comes from being present and grounded. And I think when we start really realizing that and we're able to live from that place, things start to change. So it's almost like a reparenting from the inside out.
Yes, definitely a reparenting of yourself, just
Yeah.
really honoring and loving yourself. I know that was so much about what we can do physically, clearly, emotionally, spiritually, in terms of that resilience. How do we begin? Because a lot of that is the most intangible of them all. We know that based on past experiences, how we felt about things in the past really impact the way that we approach our day to day, whether we're going to perceive a stressful situation or not, can be very much based on what we've experienced in the past. So how do we begin to, and this is, a lot of great work being done here, but create emotional resilience for ourselves?
So exactly what you said, we repeat what we don't repair, right? And
Yes.
so we want to help people respond to the current situation versus react from all of their past experiences and make that reaction disproportionate to what's happening in the present moment. Then that creates a compounded stress effect where the load is too heavy to carry. And so once we go through the first 5 weeks of our program and we repattern physically, it puts people in a calm place to be able to look at all this stuff, because it can be a bag of worms, right? A can of worms. And it's like layers of an onion. So the first thing is to really identify limiting beliefs. And every human, no human gets out alive without a lot of limiting beliefs. And so we develop these beliefs about the world between the age of 0 and 7, because there's no way we can figure out everything, how to behave, how to act, and what life is all about. So we're observing those closest to us in our home, in our society, and in our culture. And we develop these kind of beliefs, and they can be limiting beliefs to where maybe we develop compensation skills. But over time in life, they can really start to hinder us. So basically, all limiting beliefs are connected to a human need for love, connection, belonging, and safety. And I'll give you an example of one of my limiting beliefs was, I have to do everything on my own, right? That was a limiting belief I had, and it helped me. It forced me to work really hard, create a lot, develop success, but at what cost, right? I might not have said that outright. Then all of a sudden, I'm going to be driving up my stress hormones. And so you can do all the physical healing in the world, but then if you have these beliefs of you're seeking love, you're seeking approval, you're people pleasing, you feel like a perfectionist, so you're running yourself ragged, you are constantly going to be putting yourself back into the unhealthy hormonal whirlpool. So we have to really dismantle these limiting beliefs by examining them. Are they really true? And poking holes in them so we can then have the choice to reverse them and have empowering beliefs. And, when I changed mine to where I am 100% supported, I cannot even explain how much my life transformed in terms of the people and everything that came in to help. And I just felt like my load was 10% of what it used to be. And so we can have any life that we want if we just are willing to look at these glasses that we don't even know we're wearing and be able to take them off and choose a new set of glasses. And so we will go through, it's kind of like a surgical process, so to speak. We have to identify the limiting beliefs. And then we help people take what I call right accountability. And so I don't know if you've read the book, The 4 Agreements. Have you read that book?
Yeah. Yes.
And so when we get to that midpoint of accountability, life improves so much. And a lot of women are empaths, right? We feel what other people feel, or we've grown up to be people pleasers, or whatever it is. It can all the way on the end of the spectrum can be codependent from just our need to how we had to fit into our families to achieve love. But anywhere over this side is taking over accountability for yourself and others. And that is going to put you back in this adrenal dysfunction, right? It's going to put you back in the thyroid problem. And on the other end of the spectrum, we would attract people who take under accountability, people who can manipulate, and you kind of go down that. And so if we can get to the midpoint, we attract the right people, places, things, we have the right thoughts that can keep us healthy, we can set healthy boundaries, and we can take care of ourselves in a way where it's okay to be a kind person and also say no. And that really helps you out. And then we'll move through a forgiveness and a presence process and somatically releasing trapped negative emotions, because I think you'd probably agree with me when I say that whatever we've experienced, emotions get stored in the body. Sometimes they're too much to take, we store them in the body, and we don't need to so much think about them and kick them around cognitively as much as we just need to expiate them. Just like we are detoxing our physical bodies, we have to consistently detox our emotional bodies so that there's more space for all the good emotions. And once we go through this whole process, that's when we can write a new story and live from a much more empowered, authentic place that locks in that healing, because life is going to do what it does to all of us, and things will happen throughout our entire life. But if we have emotional resilience and we know how to achieve physical resilience, then something that you used to experience on the stress scale like a 10, you'll now experience it like a 2. And anybody can handle it too, right? And so it's all about this internal strength that we're building from the inside out.
I love it. Well, I think it's such an important part of it, that we don't keep getting stuck and trapped in those loops that lend to all of the physical impacts or the physical manifestations of those. For me, when I was diagnosed with my Hashimoto's, my autoimmune condition, it was very much trauma kind of adding up over time, physically manifesting. So I totally recognize and appreciate that this is built into the program as well, or we just find ourselves right back where we started.
Yeah, I really wanted to create something truly comprehensive to help people feel whole, maybe again, or maybe for the first time in their lives.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree.
Hmm.
Christa, honey, I love all of the 6 phases of everything that you talked about today. Like, how do we learn more about plugging in?
Yeah, so well, if you want to customize it, you can take our quiz. We have a quiz at tagdisorder.com, and that will help because you have to identify your primary symptoms to understand where it started and how to fix it. And so it'll help you, like if you're struggling with insomnia, anxiety, and depression, maybe you're a type A, started in your adrenals. If it's exhaustion and brain fog and weight gain, hey, you might be a type T, started in your thyroid. Or if it's food sensitivities and bloating and things like that, then it probably started in your gut. So it's helpful to customize that way. Tagdisorder.com. And we also have a mini course that people can take at theadrenalrico.com/mini course. And that is going to be, over the course of a week, we're going to give you breakfasts. Like I'm going to have people eat, let's say you can do some coconut yogurt with collagen and fruit, a little bit of sea salt there first thing in the morning to feed, refill those glycogen stores right away. You'll learn 3 or 4 different breakfasts that you can have. We do a morning elixir. I don't know if you drink lemon water in the morning, Marisa, but we have people doing lemon water with a little bit of honey to refill glycogen stores, a little bit of ginger to tonify the HCl, and some sea salt there, especially for those people who get dizzy. So the mini course will help you really start to see, okay, do you have this? And is this something, that you can implement? And nighttime snacks. We'll give 3 nighttime snacks because those people who are waking up between 1 and 4 a.m. or have trouble falling asleep, they're waking up with a cortisol spike. Or if you wake up with your heart pounding at 5 a.m., ready to start the day, but not in really a healthy way, kind of an anxious way, it's just saying you can't regulate your blood sugar, so you have to do something before you go to sleep to support your body's deeper phase of rest.
Awesome. So I love that there's little things you can do out the gate. So what we'll do is we'll have all of those in the show notes. We'll have the quiz, and then we'll have the little mini course that kind of steps you through those first steps. Where else I know I follow you on Instagram, girl. Where else can we follow you?
Yeah, well, my company's The Whole Journey. So thewholejourney.com is our website, and Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, YouTube.
Perfect. All right. Well, I will link to that as well. Thank you so much for coming on. And I love how well you just executed how the systems and how we can nourish our bodies, the why behind it. I'm really excited to have women plug into the beautiful thing that you've created for them.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, helping me spread this passion and this work.
Absolutely, Christa, honey. See you soon.
See you soon.